Our latest guest in the studio, Tinashe Jonas, the leader of the Ideal Zimbabwe Party. You said you're the civilian president of Zimbabwe.
Correct.
What do you think more likely could be the outcome of this election?
The outcome of the election, ZANU-PF is going to win. I mean, whether it's ZANU-PF A or B, because these two parties which are contesting, they are all projects of Robert Mugabe. Robert Mugabe created ZANU-PF B, which is being led by Emmerson Mnangagwa, in a form of a coup, a fake coup, to fool Zimbabweans so that they can believe in ZANU-PF again. And then the same Robert Mugabe and Grace Mugabe, they've created ZANU-PF B, which is being run by Nelson Chamisa and funded, bankrolled by Robert Mugabe. So, I mean, in the main, the losers are Zimbabweans. Mugabe is going to smile all the way to victory. Whichever side wins, it's under Robert Mugabe. Because we can't have Emmerson Mnangagwa as an enemy of Robert Mugabe when we know that Mugabe retired due to old age and then appointed Mnangagwa to take over. The coup was done to revive the fortunes of ZANU-PF.
Anele, Ndlovu, I can bring you in here now, just a quick one. There's been a lot of talk about how fair these elections will be. I mean, I've covered, I can't even remember how many elections in the last 35 years, but what I'm saying is, if it's a landslide, if it's a genuine change, you can tinker with it all you like, you're still going to lose. Do you think that's the case in Harare?
Well, it's a very complex period of time. I hear what my colleague is saying. He's saying it, I think, best on what I was also looking at in the social media space, where it's becoming very evident that Nelson Chamisa is being funded by the Mugabes. A lot going around on that particular space. It's quite disturbing. At the same time, the argument about Emmerson Mnangagwa as being the prodigy of Robert Mugabe, I think that's left to be seen. I see the scales tilting quite heavily as you saw the poll and everything else, but what I'm concerned about is you worry me with your comment, because now what concerns me is the general populace of Zimbabwe, is the people of Zimbabwe. That is my main worry. It's the development of the country. It's the creation of employment. It's the stability of the economy. The currency issues have to be sorted out. All those things. Now, we have seen, I was saying to one colleague of mine in analysis, we argued a bit. I said, let's look at the scales. What has Nelson done during his period? It's not like as if it's his first time being in power. They've been there for quite a while with Morgan and everybody else. What have they done? Let's put it on a scale of 1 to 10 and compare what they have done, and let's compare what Emmerson Mnangagwa has done in the past 6 months to a year. And then when you weigh that, one poll that you should do is, who is business pro between the two candidates? I think it's a very important poll, because then if you do that particular analysis, then you can see how the business community, the investment community, which is the most critical, the FTA, those are the people who will probably give you an ideal person that people must look at when it comes to voting. So based on those particular issues, I always refrain to comment about the politics part of it, but I want to talk about the economy part of it and the people of Zimbabwe.
Now, if we can go to a wise and old head from Zimbabwe, you both know very well, and believe it or not, we're going live to Mauritius to speak to Wilf Mbanga, the editor of the Zimbabwean. Wilf, what's your feeling from what you're seeing from the elections in the land of your birth?
Well, it's interesting that there are huge queues everywhere. It means that people are excited about what is going on, the possibility of change. And people, it's been quiet so far. But of course, there are still technical hitches here and there, where ZEC has stopped the election because they delivered the wrong material to the wrong polling station. But it is encouraging that a lot of young people have gone out to vote.
Wolf, there has been some tweets coming through of the conduct of the ZEC, and I just want to, maybe you've just touched on it briefly there, but just a little bit more insight on their state of readiness. We didn't really hear much from them during the preparation heading up to the election, and also I'm very keen to know if you think there are enough international observers at these elections.
No, I mean, well, the last question first. Well, there are about 10,000 polling stations throughout the country. The foreign observers don't even come to 1,000. There is no way they can monitor what's going on throughout the country. So the foreign observers are inadequate. The locals, yes, the local observers are everywhere. So that's encouraging. The first part of your question...
the readiness of the ZEC.
Oh, the preparedness. Well, I mean, ZEC itself has behaved abominably. They've shown that they were not ready. They were not willing to be transparent. We all know what has happened. You know, they've refused to give even the electoral rolls to people who are interested, the interested parties. They had to be forced by court orders to release the voting lists. In fact, one of the NGOs went to court on Friday to get a copy of this, which is supposed to be a public document. You know, when ZEC started at the beginning of the year, they told us that anybody could pay $20 and get a copy. But suddenly it's become a secret document. You know, there's now, it's a part of this Official Secrets Act. And they have to be forced to part with copies. So they have something to hide, which is very unfortunate. And also, there have been incidences where a number, there have been unconfirmed reports of some ZANU-PF MPs standing up with wads of the voting rolls. I mean, with actual ballot boxes, ballot papers. So security is a problem. Transparency has been a problem. And the ZEC chairperson has also not been quite honest. She was photographed wearing a Mnangagwa type scarf. And she claimed at the time that that picture was taken before she was appointed to ZEC. But it has now transpired that it was after she had been appointed.
So just thank you very much, Wilfenbanga, for your kind and sage words there from live to us from Mauritius. Now we're going back into the studio now. And Tinashe, first question I have to ask you. You are a presidential candidate, I understand. Why are you not in Zimbabwe now voting and banging the drum?
Okay, thank you. You can't be... it's unfortunate for me that I'm not a ZANU-PF member, because what is happening now, this election to me, it's an official ZANU-PF elective congress. The design of the election is done by ZANU-PF. The monitoring, everything is done by ZANU-PF without any consultation to the opposition. For the first, the first thing is that Priscilla Chigumba, the commissioner for the ZEC, she's in a relationship, in a sexual relationship with ZANU-PF member and the minister, Winston Chitando. That's the first thing. And then the second thing, ZEC is secretariat, is filled with the military intelligence and the personnel. So, and the third thing, there is no transparency as to how do they hire staff in ZEC, and who and why. But what is on record is that the staff there is military personnel. And we all know that the definition of a president in a country is someone who has got powers to command the army. But in Zimbabwe, the army has put the president as a civilian mask. Emmerson Mnangagwa has been thrust into a position so that he acts as a civilian president, while he is a military decoy and stooge. So it means in that equation of power, it means Emmerson Mnangagwa can't command the army. It means the army commands him. And who is leading the army? is General, is Chiwenga, who just resigned as the army commander and became the Minister of Defense a few weeks later. You can see that it's not resigning. It's a change of, it's fooling people. Because when you're called the Minister of Defense, it's become a civilian brand. He's vice president. He is the most powerful man in Zimbabwe. Commanding the president. So this election, and another, factor again is that ZANU-PF has created 30,000 youth, right, which has got cloned.
I want you to just put a pause on that that fact that you're about to share with us, and let's bring Ronak Gopaldas, who's a director at Signal Risk, talking about the economics of the elections once again. Ronak, thanks for your time. Let's start with the impact of the election on the policy environment. I mean, what are your thoughts in this regard?
Yeah, so I think, this is a very significant election for a lot of reasons, but it's very important because it's going to have a huge bearing on the economic, political, and social trajectory of the country. And I think what's quite useful is to use some comparative analysis to determine which way Zimbabwe is going to go. So, in recent years, we've had a couple of examples across the continent of long-serving leaders being deposed, and then, the economy needing to be revived, and mainly Egypt and Cote d'Ivoire. Now, if you look at these examples, Egypt, after huge euphoria and fanfare after Hosni Mubarak, the economy really suffered from a stop-start reform agenda. Mohamed Morsi was democratically elected and then deposed in another coup. And there's a lesson there for whoever wins the election in Zimbabwe. The military, like in Egypt, is going to play a massive role, and there's going to be a huge tension between straddling populist elements and nationalistic elements of the military and the more market-friendly and reform-oriented elements that are required to unlock international investment. So Egypt is kind of a bad case scenario of what happens when that balancing act is not done properly. The good example, of course, is Cote d'Ivoire, where post Laurent Gbagbo being replaced, you saw a massive reform agenda. You saw the IMF being re-engaged. You saw the crowding in of private sector investment. Debt was cleared, and that really set the country on a high growth path in excess of 8% for a number of years. So, I think the challenge for whoever wins the election in Zimbabwe is going to be which path do we go in terms of the reform agenda and at what pace.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Ronak Gopaldas, the Director of Signal Risk. We're coming to the end of this special broadcast now, but just a very brief from both of our guests here, final comments, starting with you, Tinashe.
Yeah, I was saying ZANU-PF has created 30,000 youth who have got cloned, IDs, 100 each. So that means they're going to vote 100 in polling stations. So out of the almost 5.7 registered million voters, ZANU-PF is assured of 3 million already. So Emmerson Mnangagwa is going to win with a landslide victory, not an honest victory, because this election is rigged already, and observers can't pick that up. So Emmerson Mnangagwa is going to win with over 70%.
And what do you say, Mr. Ngolo?
Basically, today the people of Zimbabwe must win. That is the bottom line. That is the most important thing. And whoever wins, they must know that they are not in that position for themselves to gain more, but they've got a big responsibility to steer our country towards the right direction.
Brilliant. Very interesting insights there from both, I guess, saying the winners of this particular election should be the people of Zimbabwe.